Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Xa Talk Show. Today we are going to code emacs, lisp, and JavaScript. We are going to write a search engine for xali.info website. And it's gonna be on xali.org as well. So let's get to it straight. So this is just today is just live coding, and plus I'm gonna explain while I code. And this is going to be probably 90 minutes, okay, 90 minutes or maybe 2 hours. I hope I can finish in 90 minutes. So it's gonna be dense coding. So writing a search engine for my website, and you can see the topics here. I outlined what we are going to do today. So today's 2022 March 26th. Okay, let's begin. So write a search engine. Okay, so hello guys. If you have questions, comments, post it, okay? And pay me, super chat and PayPal and Patreon. Okay, so writing a search engine, and I'm using emacs, lisp, of course. I'm using emacs, and you can see all my emacs, all my command calls and keystrokes on the left side as I type. And if you don't know any commands I'm doing, you can just search for it. For example, that. Okay, so yeah, let's begin. Okay, so writing a search engine. So let's see. So first of all, let me tell you what is the expected result. Okay, so for example, you can use Google. Why do you need to use search engine? You can use Google, but let me tell you what's the result. Okay, so if you go to my Unicode search, you can just search for Xali Unicode. You can go to this page, and for example, I type water. Watch the screen, WATE. As I type, the result shows. So this is what I want. This is the expected result or the spec of this job, this task of writing a search engine. I'm going to have a search box just like that, and as user type, you can show the result. Water, and try something, magnify, and LATIN or Latin letters and so on. So this is what it's gonna be like. And why do I need to write a search engine? So my website has 10,000 files. Together it's 10,000 files. So I need, when you code JavaScript or Emacs Lisp, let's go to JavaScript, okay? So xali.info, and you go to JavaScript in depth. If you are a JavaScript coder or Emacs Lisp coder or any language, Golang or whatever, constantly you need to look up documentation for functions, for methods or variables. You need to know what they mean. So for example, when you are coding JavaScript, I have JavaScript in depth. This is my best tutorial. Truly, one of the top three in the world in English language, I would say. So if you like my stuff, support me, okay? You can, pay me and buy it. JavaScript in depth. So when you are coding JavaScript, for example, I have a complete reference on JavaScript, object array, array. For example, you want to get a slice of an array. How do you do it? There are so many functions, right? So when you code, if you are a programmer, constantly you need to look up, go around the documentation like a sea of functions. So for my JavaScript website, it would be nice to have a search box, just like my Unicode. Just so you can type a function. For example, what's the method? You might remember. Okay, so how do you call a function? How do you call a method that's how do you delete an element in an array? So in JavaScript, you can do that with a delete operator. So you have to find the page. That's the issue. So because I'm familiar with my own website, so I know exactly where it is. So operator. So you go to operators, and do you see the delete operator, equality, bitwise logic? So no, it's not here. So that's why you have to search. So let's go back to JavaScript in depth. Let's go to the array section. Array. So all about arrays. Where? Here. Array overview, create array, sparse array, array like object, array equality, array how to. So let's see. So I don't remember exactly where I mentioned the delete operator. So I mean, that's a point. So when you code, so if I have a search box, then I can get it right away. I can see the variety of ways to delete an element or a bunch of elements in an array. There are several methods. What's the difference between them? So that's why a search engine, and especially instantaneous one, is extremely useful. Google. Why don't you use Google search or DuckDuckGo or anything like that? There are several reasons. That's no good, because Google search, they do not index all of my pages. They index like 90%. There are maybe 5% of my pages they do not even index. So, and that's one thing. The other thing is that when you search for JavaScript array methods, you'll get a bunch of spammy websites with lots of ads, shallow, written by penny writers, like Tutorial Point, W3 School. They are not in depth, and sometimes they are incorrect. Lots of spam, they'll show on the first several pages. And also, for example, you can use Google to search a particular website. For example, I believe the syntax is sitexali.info. Let's say as I want to delete array element, okay? Yeah, so so then you get my PowerShell. It shows my PowerShell, tutorial about array. The array.prototype.splice, that's what you want, okay? So it would be so and plus a lot of people don't know this this syntax to search a particular website with Google search. So they don't index all of my web pages, and when you search something, they often show irrelevant results. So that's a problem. The other thing is Google is becoming an evil empire. So and also you don't want to rely on third party. So okay, let's get back to, let's start to write it. Okay, so to write a search engine, you need I don't know what is Agolia. Okay, that's another search engine. Same problem. Okay, so to write a search engine, you need two things. One is that you want to create a index file, kind of like a database. So the index file will be just like a hash table, or in other words, key value pairs. So key is a word people search. Let's say delete array, keyword, and the value. The essence of the value should be the URL, the page that contains that word. So you need to go through all your content, all your files in a directory, thousands of them. You need to create this index file, create these key value pairs where the key are the words people type, and then it's a hash table. It shows the page it is located. This is the simplest form of search engine. Now, if you're gonna show the context, what's the word before or after the searched word, then that gets more complex. But for me, for now, a simple case will do. So you need to create a key value, a hash table, the index file, okay? And for that, we are going to use emacs lisp, okay? I was thinking maybe use Golang, but apparently lots of you people says, you want me to do it with using emacs lisp. So let's do that. So once you have an index file, That's essentially the hash table. You convert it to the JSON format. Then you use JavaScript to uses JavaScript as the front end, as the interface to query, to look up the hash table, then show the result instantaneously. So that's what we need to do. Okay. So let's start to write it. Okay, just talking about that takes 10 minutes. Okay, so today's thing we're gonna write. So first of all, create a index file using elisp. Okay, emacs lisp. Then yeah, okay. So actually, I already said it here. Okay, so first job, let's begin. So emacs lisp. So we create a emacs lisp file. So here's a file, and let's put the date, and let's say go through order and create a index file of their content. Okay, first of all, let's be simple. Let's create a hash table. Keyword being the title of the page. Wait, so let's see. So I'm going to create the title of the page and the URL file, and the keyword key is the title of the page. Let's say value is the file path. Okay. Now we may need to change that, but let's go with that for now. So go through all directory, create an index file of their content, and for now, let's just focus on the title of the page. We only search the title of the page. Let's forget about the whole content. It gets more complex. So title of the page and value will be the file path. Okay, so that's for now. Then save that hash table as a JSON file. Okay, so that's the main thing we need to do. So first of all, okay, so let's see input. Okay, let's create a variable. That's the input directory. So where would it be? So let's see. So let's do emacs lisp. Okay, so go to my emacs lisp tutorial. So the input directory will be my emacs tutorial page. That's right. So okay, so let's copy that. So here's the file path. That's right. So the input directory will be this. Okay. So we're gonna index all files in that directory. Actually, this directory has lots of other things. We do not want to index the Emacs manual. So okay, we immediately run into complexities. So you see, the Emacs directory is most of my Emacs and Emacs Lisp tutorial and blogs. The Emacs manual directory is Emacs Lisp manual and Emacs manual. Each one of them is about 800 pages, 900 pages, or 1,000 pages for Emacs Lisp actually. So then there's miscellaneous directory, which is 150 pages, and this is about miscellaneous essays. So am I going to index? Okay, for now, let's go simple. Because I'm kind of doing a tutorial and demo, so after the video, I'm going to, make it for real life stuff. So for now, let's just, so for now, let's just index that directory. Okay, that directory you are looking at, which is 800 pages. Okay, now let's delete the backup. Okay, so this is the input directory, and now go through the for each file, get the title string and file path. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so how do we go through a directory? You should write in assembly. What crap? Okay, how do we traverse a directory in emacs lisp? Okay, let's go to my emacs lisp tutorial. I have a tutorial here. I don't remember offhand. Walk does. So this is how you go through all directories, all files in a directory. Okay, so here's a code. So here's a code. Directory file recursively. Okay, so yeah, so let's let's look up the documentation. Okay, so directory file recursively, that's right. Yeah, okay, so we already have a template. So we want to go to the dir, so the dir would be X input directory, the root directory, then regular expression. What is the regular expression for? Return a list of all files in the directory and all its subdirectories that have file names matching regular expression. Okay, so this regular expression is the matching file names. So we want HTML files. Okay, so that's the regular expression. Then optional, include directories. No, we don't care about directories. We only want to go through the files. So here will be set q file list. Okay. Okay. Pretty fine. Okay, so now we have a file list to go through. Okay. Now we just need to write a function that go through each one of the files. So here is a file list. For example, let me show you. Okay, if I run it, void variable. Okay, yeah, void variable. So we have to evaluate this because Emacs right now doesn't know what is this. So evaluate it, and now evaluate that line so you can see a bunch of results. Now let me show you the results. So you go to the message buffer. It doesn't show them all, but let's copy it, create a new buffer, paste it, turn the, make them into each line so you can see lots of files. Okay, let's close it. Let me, yeah, I'm gonna show you. Okay, so here is a list of files. Okay, we got a file list. Then we need to write a function that takes a file, takes a file path and do something. Okay, so let's call this function process file. It will read the file and get the title and get the file path and push it into a hash table. Okay, so that's a function. Now let's leave it. We're gonna come back to it. So next thing, we're gonna have this function run on each and every of these file lists. Okay, so to do that, you use the command, the function mapc. Okay, so mapc takes a function, then take a list. So the list is gonna be X file list. Okay, and the function is going to be X process file. Okay, so you need a quote. So essentially that's it. So for now, let's say what the function do. Let's just say print the file path. Okay, for now, okay. So there it is, very simple. So we can actually test this script. Okay, so let's run it. Actually, we can run this now, and it should show you basically a list of all the files. Yeah, let's run it. Now make sure there's no errors. Okay, Run it. Okay, it's done. Now go to the messages buffer. You can see all the bunch of files. We just we went through. Okay, so now lots of them, and now we need to create a hash table. For this function, each time it get the title and string and push it to a hash table. So how do you write a hash table? Okay, so let's go to Emacs tutorial. Let's copy let's put this in my talk show so we have a record of what we talked about. So let me go do that. Okay, now we need to look for how do you create a hash table in Emacs Lisp. Okay, so hash table. So you go to Emacs Lisp, Emacs Lisp Advanced. Then you have const pair, list, vector, sequence types, and you have association list, you have property list, you have symbol property list, and then you have hash table. That's what you want. Okay, so we're gonna create a hash table. Okay, let's just copy the code. So so we're gonna create a hash table. Let's put the comments here. So shrink it a little bit. So we're gonna create a hash table. So yeah, let's say my hash, and you can kind of ignore the rest the rest of it. This argument just means it tells Emacs how do you compare what function to use to check if a key exists. Typically if the key is a string, then you use string equal. Because different data types, they have different sense of equality. For example, the number 3 integer versus the string 3. For example, 3 versus 3. So are they equal or not? Well, conceptually they are equal. They are just 3, but technically, depending on the language, this is an integer, this is a string. When you compare, they are not equal. So when you create a hash table in Emacs Lisp, this argument tells Emacs what function to use to determine whether a key exists or not, what kind of comparison function to use. So that's what that part is. So in general, just use equal. That's good. Okay, so the hash table. So let's put some documentation for the hash table. So we can say define var my hash init value, let's say nil, and documentation is key is a string title string. Okay, key is a string, the title of the HTML page, value is the file path. Actually, we might need to reverse them. Let's not reverse them. Well, anyway, let's do it this way for now. Okay, so that's my hash. Okay, right now the hash table is empty. Okay, so now we need to modify this function, go through each file. So first of all, you need to open the file, get the title string, then add it to the hash table. Okay, so how do you open a file? Okay, we check my tutorial, but first of all, let's add this here. Okay, so you open the file by, let's go back to Emacs tutorial, practical Emacs Lisp. You open the file by read file. Yeah, that's the one you want. Yeah, I already have it written. This is the best way to open a file. There are many ways in emacs lisp. Some of them are not very efficient, for different purposes. Some of them are just only for interactive use. Typically, those are not efficient, such as find file. For example, find file is what you use in Emacs to open a file. But if you are coding Emacs Lisp script, usually you don't want to use that, because when you call find file, it opens the file, it starts to syntax color the file, it turns on undo, so everything you do, it slows you down because it has undo information. But in our case, we don't need undo, and we don't need syntax coloring, because it's gonna process thousands of files every second. So you don't want to use find file. So you want to use this way, okay? So which is, did I paste it here? No, okay, here it is. So this is how you want to do it, okay? So let's, we screwed up a parenthesis somewhere. Unbalanced parenthesis. Where did we? Scan error. Yeah, here we missed a right parenthesis. Okay, so now here. Okay, so yeah. So now we have, so this is what we want. Okay, so let's name it properly. So name file path. Okay, we don't need this anymore. Okay, so that's what you do with temp buffer. So you create, that function creates a temporary buffer, then you insert the file contents, and yeah, you call the command insert file contents and give it a file path. It will insert the file content into the buffer. Okay, then do something here. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna first of all go to char point minimum. That's the beginning of the buffer. Okay, then search for word for title. Okay, search for word for the word title. For example, in a HTML file, for example, here's the title. Every title is not optional. Basically, whenever you have HTML page, you should have a title. Okay, so we search for the title, search to the title, then optional, bound. We don't care about those options. Okay, so search forward for the title, then we want set set p1. P1 is a position. Okay, let's say set p1 to match end. Okay, so we need to declare a variable p1, local variable. So let's use let p1 and p2. We need two variables for storing positions of the cursor in the buffer. Okay, so now we can move the whole thing here inside here. Okay, prettify it. So okay, so we insert the file contents into the new buffer we created. We go to the beginning of the buffer, then we search forward for title. Okay, then we set p1, the local variable, to be we need p2 too. We set p1, the local variable, to be the end position of the last match. So basically that's the beginning of the inner text. Okay, Then we search forward again. This time we search for the closing tag of the title, okay? That, then we don't care about the options, okay? Okay, then we set position 2 to be match beginning, okay? Match beginning 0 means the, 0 means the entire match, when you don't have, subgroups. So P2 is the position of the entire match, the beginning position. So meaning, right before the closing tag. So essentially our P1 and P2, let me show you. So our P1 and P2 is right there. So now all we have to do is tell Emacs to grab the string between these two positions, okay? So now, let's declare a new variable, title string. Let's do that. Let's change our variable name, okay? So this is my new convention. Okay, so title string. So we're gonna grab the title string. The title string is gonna be set buffer substring, buffer substring no properties, okay? P1, P2, okay? This is gonna be set title string that, okay? So now we got the title string. Now once we got the title, we're gonna push it to the hash table, my hash, okay? Let's change the name my hash to x hash. Yeah, let's not change it. Okay, I bad habit of me, of mine, of obsessing about the variable names and stuff. You should write it in assembly. What a bullshit comment. Hello, sir. So how many is watching? Only 6. Okay, so now we have the title string. Now we're gonna push it to the hash table, okay? Yeah, so how do you push to the hash table? Let's go back to the emacs lisp read file, okay? So how do you push it to the hash table? Okay, here is what we talked about, hash table. Yeah, so let's go to hash table and see how do you add a key value pair to the hash table. There it is, put hash. Copy it back to Emacs. Okay, put hash, then x title, then the value will be file path. That's right. Okay, and put it into the my hash table. Okay, fantastic. Okay, I think that's it. Now we can actually run the whole file. So right now this file will go through every file in this directory and find the title of the page and push it into the hash table. And so at the end, let's print the hash table to see what it looks like. Okay, print. Okay, now we're gonna run this code. Okay, run it. Search failed title. Okay, so apparently some of my HTML file don't have a title. That's a problem. So I don't know which page it is, so let's put a print statement here so that we know which page it is processing. So processing that file. Okay, now let's run it again. Run it. Okay, search file title. Now let's switch to the buffer message, to the messages buffer there. Okay, so this page doesn't have the title. Okay, we found the error, so let's open it. Oh, okay, page moved. Okay, so yeah, so that's another complexity, you know. So because, you know, when I have that, for example, sometimes you, for many reasons, you change the file name. So I have this, you know, it says, you know, page moved, either merged into another page or something like that. So that's why this page doesn't have a title. And in fact, you don't want to index this page, you know, for a search engine. So when you see that, okay, so what to do? So basically, we are going to put a if statement. So if you cannot find the title, then skip that page. Okay, so we're gonna put the if statement. Okay, let's change the code. Let's put the if statement. Am I doing okay? Voice check, video check. Is this interesting? If it's interesting, say hi. Okay. Say, you know, if it's interesting, say Tiffany Dover. I learned this from another YouTuber. So if it's not interesting, say no. Perfect, fantastic, Luis. Thank you. So okay, so now we're gonna put a if statement. If it cannot find the title, then skip this page, do nothing. Okay, so let's do it. So if statement, show the pink window. So if statement, if search forward is true, you know, the search forward function returns either true or false. So if it is true, then we're gonna do that. Yeah, we're gonna do this whole thing. Okay, there it is. Okay, if it's, you know, if the title is found, do this. If it's not found, do nothing. So let's change this to when. Okay, when is basically the same as if statement. Basically, the if not found, do nothing. Okay, so when search forward is true, you found it. You found the title, then, you know, grab it and put into the hash table. Otherwise, do nothing. Okay. So now actually our code is complete again. We can run the whole thing. So let's prettify, shrink a little bit. Let's compact, you know, the whole, so we can see the whole. Okay, so that's it. So we're gonna run this again. Run it. Search failed title. Okay, same error. So you run into search failed. That's because when you call the function search forward, you have to give it options. Because otherwise, if it's not found, it will return an error. So let's describe function search forward. You can see the first optional argument is bound. Bound is a position. That means search up to that position and ignore the rest of the text. Okay, so do we want it bound? We are nil. Okay, so the next option is no error. That's the thing we need. So if it's not found, just no error, true. Okay, that means if it's not found, don't error out, don't stop it. Okay, ignore it. If no error, no problem. Okay, so no error, true. Okay, that's what we want. And the other option count, we don't care. Okay, so now search forward for the title and not bound, you know, search all the way till the bottom of the file. And if it's not found, okay, ignore it. Okay, and when it's found, it will return true. Then, you know, then we do, you know, this. Okay, Now let's run it again. Run it. Fantastic, fantastic, done. You see. Now let's print done. Let's run it again. You see, very fast. Let's show the message buffer. You see, done. Now let's look at the message buffer. You know, you have this whole thing. That's a hash table. You know, that's a hash table we generated. You know, when you have a super long line, emacs become very slow. Like right now, I cannot, you know, I press page up, it doesn't move. Because this line is, this long line is some 800 file path. You know, that's a hash table. So we need to do something to it. So let's close that because it slows down Emacs. So instead of just print hash, let's say, now let's loop through the hash table and print each one's title and file path, you know, per line. Okay. So how do you print hash table? So how do you loop through a hash table? Okay, here is how. There, map hash. Okay, apply a function to each and every entry in a hash table. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So this is my Emacs Lisp tutorial. So instead of print hash, we're gonna map hash. Okay, so the hash table is gonna be that. And what is the function? The function is gonna be a lambda. Okay, lambda. So for each element in a hash table, what we're gonna do, add entry, remove entry, get keys value, number of entries, remove all entries, check key exist, apply a function to all entries. Okay, apply a function to all entries in a hash table. The function f must take two arguments, key and value. Okay, so the function takes two elements, key and value. Okay, key and value. So for each key, let's just say message. Okay, key. Let's name them KK and VV, so it's easier to search. Okay, so for each key you print it, and let's say key value. Okay, that's gonna print the key and value. There it is. There is our function, print each element in a hash table. Okay, now let's run it. Now let's shrink the whole thing again so you can see. Let's run it. Fantastic. Oh wait, invalid function. Let's see. Let's go to the message buffer. Invalid function, lambda something something. Okay, why? Oh yeah, how idiotic I am. You know, I was using a comma. You know, in JavaScript, in Golang, you need a comma, but in Emacs Lisp, no comma. Okay, let's do it again. What? Yeah, again, there's a comma. You don't need a comma. Okay, in Lisp. Okay, now let's do it again. Fantastic. Let's go to it. You see, there it is. There it is. Our hash table. The full glory. You know, 8,000 files. Now you see. Now it's fast. Before it's one giant long line, and Emacs cannot deal with that. So, but now, so we can see. So for example, so let's see. So this line, so on this file, at this file path, the title is that, and on this file, you know, title and file path. Fantastic. So essentially now we have the index file for our search table. So, I mean for our search engine, basically, yeah. So we got an index file. God, there's a lot to do. So how long have I been talking for an hour almost already. So essentially now we got an index file. Now we need to convert this hash table into a JSON format, because JavaScript needs to read the JSON format. Then we start to code JavaScript. We almost done. And I'm been talking for an hour and I'm kind of tired. So let me take a break. Okay, a few minutes. Let's read the comments. So where's my video? So yeah, let me have a drink, energy drink. Okay, so this is my super energy drink. Okay, so let's so I got a hash table. Now the next thing I need to do is to convert this hash table into a JSON format. Okay, so let's clear. I need a break. Sitting here for an hour coding this. Am I doing good? So let's clarify the comment a little bit so people can understand what we're doing. So go through order and create an index file of their contents. Create a hash table. Key is the so the index file is a hash table. Key is the title of the page. Value is the file path. Okay. Save that hash table as a JSON file. Okay. Okay. And yeah, so that's what we are doing. So here's the input directory. Here's the hash table. Okay. And then here's the file list to go through. Then here's a function that takes a file path and find the title and add to the hash table. Then here is the line that calls the function on each and every files in that directory. So in fact the file list can be placed over here. But anyway, let's continue. Okay, so now we have a hash table. Now we print the hash value. Okay, print out hash table. Okay, so far so good. So the next task is to convert the hash table into a JSON. Now I'm not sure how to do that, so it's gonna be a bit exploration. So in emacs Lisp you have a library that does JSON, but I've never used it. I don't think so. So anyway, let's see what's the comment. Really liking it. Fantastic. Thank you. I love it. Fantastic. Interesting indeed. Use when. Okay, great. It is very interesting. Add a lot to the site quality. Great. Don't need programming when. That's correct. Yeah, so there's little style issues. So when you have a when, you don't really need the PROGN to group them together. Yeah, but that's a little issues because sometimes when you are working on emacs Lisp, it's convenient because, for example, for some reason later on I decided I don't want when, I do want to have if. Now if I'm gonna do that, then if I don't have the program, this PROGN, then I have to find out which line I have to put them together and then put a program. But now I can just press a key to have the whole group. I can easily manipulate the whole thing. So when you are done with the code at the end, then you clean up. Then okay, this PROGN is redundant. You remove it like that, then you prettify the code, you see. But then, after a month, when you are maintaining the code, you always have to maintain the code. Maybe you need to add some more features. Maybe I decided I'm going to index the whole file content instead of just the title. You need to edit the file again. then you're gonna have, oh my god, that's tedious. I need to put a PRN here because so in general, I don't fuss about these these tiny issues. Usually, in fact, ideally, you should group your code in a syntactical unit. Like you should make them so that any unit, like independent unit of code, semantic unit of the code, is also syntactically a unit. For example, these few lines, their meaning is a kind of independent unit. So you can make them into also a syntactical unit, so that you can edit your file. The syntactical unit and semantical unit there's a correspondence, and that is the beauty of the nested parentheses syntax. For example, here is a function, right? This is a function. Now I can edit the function by just like remove the whole. I can go anywhere or to another file and put it here. I don't have to but this is the beauty of SEXP, the symbolic expression. There's a correspondence between semantic unit and syntactical unit. But if I'm doing this in JavaScript, then no, then you have to, then you have to go line by line to edit it, basically. So that's minor, kind of tip. That's one of the advantage of the nested parentheses syntax. Of course, there are many disadvantages as well, because you got lots of this nesting. If you are missing one, then it's hell. If you, by some reason, if your cat jumped onto your keyboard, then it's hell. It's hard to fix. So anyway, so let's get on to the next thing. Let's get on to the next thing of converting the hash table to JSON. There are many ways to do it. One easy way is just search, emacs lisp hash, JSON. Then you'll find the library. But I'm not gonna do that because because I'm gonna show you some of my my skills. I'm doing my talk show, so let me show you. Okay, so first of all, so right now we want to convert a hash table to JSON. The question is how to do that. Now I know there's a library, so so one way is to just look into the emacs lisp libraries that comes with Emacs. You'll find it there easily. So how do I begin to do it? For example, I just search describe function on any function name. So I am now looking at the inline, the doc string for the search forward function. Then I can jump to the source code. Okay, this one is in C, so that doesn't work. So you actually need something that's not in C. Okay, so with temp buffer, there it is. Okay, so describe function on that. So you see, with temp buffer is a list macro in this file. Okay, now jump to that file. Now we are at the source code of this function. Now you direct jump to the directory. So here's the file, the directory. This function is defined, and here is you arrived at the Emacs lisp libraries that comes with Emacs. You can see the file path is there. So let's go up a directory. In fact, it's here. If I just search for JSON, let's say list matching lines JSON. there it is. We already found it. Okay, yeah, so let's directly go to it. So here's a JSON library. Let's see. Okay, so open it. Okay, open it. Written by this guy. I know this guy. It's actually a she now. Anyway, so this is written in 2006. Yes. So okay, so JSON. So let's see what so here's some documentation. Okay, so here's a library for parsing and generating JSON files. Okay, JavaScript object notation. Learn about JSON here. So this is unexplored territory. I've never used this before, so this is how I look up how I do things, how I try to find. Okay, so the user serviceable entry points for the parser are the functions JSON read from string. The encoder has a single entry point, JSON encode. Okay, since there are several natural representations of key value pair mappings in emacs lisp, associative list, property list, hash table, JSON read allows you to specify which you prefer. Okay, JSON object type. Okay, so we need to look into that. JSON object type and JSON array type. Okay, similarly, since false and null are distinct in JSON, you can distinguish them by binding JSON false and JSON null as desired. Binding JSON false and JSON null. Okay, so we don't care about this, but we care. We want to convert a hash table into JSON. We could also convert the hash table into a list, then convert that to JSON. Several ways. So let's look at So we need to read define. So this is unexplored territory for me. So let's look up list matching lines to see all the functions in this file. Okay. Let's say if there's a hash word, there it is, JSON encode hash table. There it is. So this seems to be the function we want. It takes a hash table and returns a JSON string, I think. So let's have a look. Okay, open that. Okay, hash table encoding, JSON encode hash table. Return JSON representation of hash table. Okay. Okay, wait. Return a JSON representation of hash table. Does that mean it returns a string? Because a string is what we want. That's basically JSON is just a string, a giant. Well, JSON itself is not a string, but however, how do you represent it? You have to represent it as a string in Emacs. I'm not too sure what's going on. So anyway, so here's a function we want. Okay, let's go back to our code. So let me show you. Okay. Wait. Okay, let's put this window over here so that we can see. Now let's go back to our code. Okay, temp buffer we don't need. I don't need that. Go back to our here's our code. Now the function we want, let's put it here. That's probably the function we want, but before we call the function, we need to load this library. Okay, so you're gonna call require and JSON. Okay, so this is how you load the library, require JSON. Okay, now this function will be available. So I don't know what this function does. So the easiest way is to test it first. So first of all, you create a hash table and call it, see what it returns. Okay. So here is a hash table. We can create a new buffer and start afresh. Okay. So save this as the date and .el. Okay. Okay. Require JSON and okay, so let's look at this. So now we load the JSON library, we create a dummy hash table, and now we call the function JSON encode hash table and give a hash table variable. But what does it return? Let's run it. Run it. Fantastic, it runs. Okay, but what exactly is the result? I don't know. So is it a string? Let's see. String P. Let's say X result. Okay, so result. Okay, then is it a string? Run it. Run it. True. There it is. You see, in the mini buffer, you can see it's true. By the way, I want to test this. Okay, so there is something. When I'm doing a video, so there's a little digression. Okay, so when I'm doing a video, I want the mouse cursor to be big and magnified. Like can you see it? Yeah, a little red. So let's see if I can turn on control panel. Okay, so you go to control panel, you go to the classic Windows mouse. You want the trails. Okay, let's see. Pointer options. There it is. There it is. Let's see. Do you see the yeah, fantastic. That shows, right, in my video. Let's see. Yep, fantastic. Okay, let's get back. This is just fun. Okay, so back to what is this? Close. Yeah. So now it shows a string. Okay, but what is the result? Okay, fantastic. So this is the result. This is the JSON. Okay, so this function takes a hash table and returns a string. This string is a JSON thing. Okay, but how do you let's switch to the messages buffer. How do you want to save this into a file? Essentially, you don't want the lots of these escape quotes. Wait, so how do you? So you got a string, right? So you got a string, and now you want to. Yeah, basically you want to save the string into a file. Once you save the string into a file, then you won't have, all these escapes. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so the result. So this is a string. Now the next question is, how do you save a string into a file? Okay, now let's look up my emacs tutorial again. Emacs Lisp Advanced. Let's go to Practical Emacs Lisp. I need to modify the navigation bar. Not satisfied with this. it should be all accessible, to go to any of these topics without having to like click to, yeah. Okay, anyway, so how do you save a string to a file? Okay, so let's go to practical emacs lisp, writing a script, read file, write file. There it is. So you have write region. There it is. So you can use this function, okay? Write region. Right region. So point minimum, point max, that's a position, but you can also give it a string, okay, that will save that string to a file name. So what is a file name? File name will be, let's say, xx.json. Okay, xxindex.json. Okay, then optional append, no, visit, no, log name, no, must, okay, we don't care. Okay, so this will so this will do it. Run it. Oh wait. Okay, so now let's go to the file. Okay, let's open this file. Fantastic. Let's magnify. So this is actually our hash table. Can you see? This is actually our hash table. Fantastic. This is 800 files. Each key is the file title, and each value is the, let's turn off that. Each key is a file title, and each value is the file path. We made a mistake. Here we have a toy hash table, but actually it's a local variable. So the hash table actually converted was our thing. Okay, so we don't need this file anymore. So cut it, delete it, go back to our code here, and let's put the code here, paste it here. So require JSON, okay, and we don't need our toy hash table anymore. Then this result is a JSON file. So let's just and that's a string, that's right. So we don't need this. So here is that. Okay, simple, just 2 lines. Load the JSON library, then call this function to turn a hash table into a JSON string, then call write region to save it to a file, and the file is saved to is this one. Okay, so we did 80 minutes. And now we haven't begun to write the JavaScript part yet. The JavaScript part will take 40 minutes or more in order to see a search engine box result. Okay, so right now we have a problem. This JSON file is one single long line, very long. I don't want that. I want it to be, with line breaks, because emacs have difficulties of handling very long lines. Because when you have very long lines, you see, it becomes super slow. So I'm going to let's skip that. Okay, don't worry about this. Let's get on to the next thing. Okay, it might be helpful to also search h2 tags. Exactly, yeah, but later on, okay, because we need to. Oh, and JSON library is loaded by default. Okay, great to know. Okay, so yeah, the good point. You also need to. It's good to also search for H2 header tags and H3. But for now, let's make the problem as simple as possible. Just to prototype a search engine. Okay, so now what's the next? So we got the JSON file. We got the JSON file. Let's go. Okay, we got the JSON file, and we have the JSON file, and this JSON file essentially it will become a JavaScript file, so we can actually start to work on the JavaScript now. Okay, let's work on the JavaScript. Essentially this JSON file is all we needed. That's all we need emacs list for to create this JSON file, which is the index file for our search engine. So let's move on to start to code the JavaScript front end to write the search engine. Okay, so let's put the code back into my talk show page, today's talk show. So here's the code we did today. This emacs lisp. Okay, then make a backup of this file just in case. Then, so now we can start to work on the JavaScript. Okay, so now let's open the JSON file. What? It not exist. What the fuck? What? Oh shit. Where did we do it? Oh god. This is no good. Okay, so where did the JSON file go? Oh yeah, so it's in the temp, in my temp. I forgot. So yeah, so there it is, the JSON file. So open this file. Now let's make them into individual lines. So we're gonna do a find and replace. Let's magnify so you can see. Find replace of this character. Wait, not that. Find replace this. Okay, find replace double quote comma double quote, enter, replace by double quote comma space double quote. I mean return double quote. Okay, do it. Yes, to the whole. Okay, now it's much better. Now it's now turn on. You see, now it's much better. Okay, here's our JSON file. Okay, so magnify. So the key is the file title. The value is the file path. So we got a JSON file. Okay, so cut it out. Wait, make a backup. Cut it. Delete the file. Now go back to my emacs. Okay, now let's new buffer, paste the file and save it. Okay, this is gonna be named xxsearch.js. Okay, so this is now a JavaScript. Now we are coding JavaScript now. So this so JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript now, change of tune. JavaScript now constant index file. So this index file is a huge JSON object. Okay, now you see there are 665 lines. Too big. We are doing prototype, so let's reduce this just to a few. Cut it. Yeah, so let's just reduce this file to 1,000 lines, to 100 lines, so we can prototype the search engine fast. Okay, so index file, so constant index file. God, this is okay. So we are starting to code JavaScript. This is gonna take an hour. So what is the basic thing you need to do? Okay, so let me comment. Let me write. What are the steps? What's the things you need to do? So you need to, first of all, you need to have a user interface. You need to, in HTML page, you have to create the input text box, then load the JavaScript file, then I think my wife is back. Then yeah, you need to create it. So let's do that. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go back to talk show. Let's create a search box here. Okay, and here is a JavaScript file. Make it load. Script tag loaded, and before we do anything, you need a search box. Okay, so actually let's put the search box at the beginning of today's talk show for now. Okay, so here we need a search box. So what does search box need? So you need a input text box. Okay, that's all you need. So how do you do that? Okay, you go to you go to my Xali HTML JavaScript tutorial, DOM scripting tutorial. Then you go to text area. Not text area, text field. Okay, so that's how you do the user interface. How do you create for example, I can test something. You type something, you create a text box, then the JavaScript will pick it up and print it out here. So that's how you do it. So let's copy the code. Copy. Okay, so let's paste it here. So I'm gonna explain. Okay, so this is what you need for the text box. Okay, input text. Okay, so let's input text that name. So this is search. Okay, search, and search text size, max length, we don't care. Name will be, value will be empty. Name will be search. Okay, search string. Okay, so show in browser. You see we got a search box. And now now we need to copy this JavaScript, delete it. We open our JavaScript, then paste it here, and remove this block. So here's our JavaScript code. Let me show you. Okay, JSON EL we don't need. Yeah, so here is the search box. Then here's a result box. We don't need the result box. Oh, we do, because once the JavaScript got the result, it needs to insert somewhere. So it needs to insert here. Okay, then you load the JavaScript. Now in the JavaScript, in the JavaScript, first of all, you grab the input text, okay, the element, then you grab the element for the show box. That's the element where you're gonna insert the result. Then you have a function, you define a function, update arrow function. Oh god, this is gonna get complex. Show box text content equals to input text dot value, okay? Then get the event listener, add a event listener to the input text element. So whenever the input element is changed, it will call the fUpdate function, okay? So that's our JavaScript, and we can save it, and we can show the HTML page in browser. Now magnify, now test. You see it works. You see whatever you typed, it got inserted there, okay? That's a structure. We got the structure down. Now we need to implement the search, okay? So we have this JSON file here. There's lots of entries and too many, okay? Let's just say 50 of them. Let's just say 40 of them. Let's truncate. Yeah, even 40 is too many. So let's just say 10, 20, okay? Wait. Let's copy the whole thing to the top, okay? Move them to the top here. So we just have, it's a lot. Oh god. Okay, let's just say 15 of them, okay? So that's the index file. That's a object. The keys are the title, the values are the file path, okay? Then, so what we need to write the update function. So when update is called, so here is what we need to write, okay? Let's make a copy. So when update is called, when update function is called, you need to search all the strings in the object, in the hash table, for the title. And if it's found, I'm getting tired, let's do this quickly. I'm gonna finish, So when the search function is called, you need to go through each and every of this key, the title text, search for it, for the string. If it's found, you display, suppose you found several of them, then you display the result. You convert the result into HTML inner text, and you inject it into this result element, okay? That's what we're gonna do. So let's start to document. fUpdate search through. Okay, so fUpdate search through index file key and return a result. So we need to write another function. Arrow function, okay? So this function will be called filter results. Okay. Let's just say search. Okay. So let's say filter. Okay, f filter. Okay, so f filter will take a object and a key will take object and a key is a string, return a new object where the key is found. Okay, return a new object whose elements are the elements where the key is found, something like that. Okay, that's a first draft documentation. We're gonna improve the writing later. Okay, documentation is important. So this filter will take an object and a key and search through all the keys in the object and return a new object. Okay, got a lot to write. So update with so are you guys still with me? Ching, thank you, Luis. Oh, there's JSON pretty print. Thank you. That's a good tip. So I can use it later. Okay, so it might be helpful. Yeah. So now JavaScript. So we are writing this function. Did we just fuck up something? What I did? Yeah, okay. So we are writing this function, but this we don't need. Okay, so delete that, shrink, so you can see the whole. Now let's call a command to prettify the code. You know, I'm using JavaScript mod. If you like my stuff, you can buy it. Okay, JavaScript mod is one of my emacs packages. So I have a feature that can format the whole code. You know, F9F. Okay, so let's do it. So now it reformatted the code. Now it looks pretty. So you see the keys and value, key value. That's an object. Okay, so now we are writing the filter function. Okay, so the filter function, okay, so you got an object. So first step is to go through every element in the object, enumerate the object, you know, and for each element you want to search the key. Okay, and if it's true, then return it. Okay, so there are many ways to do it. Because JavaScript, you know, let's go to the JavaScript object. So right now I want to look for ways to enumerate objects' properties. Okay. Now, if I have a search engine, I can just type it list properties. You know, but no, I don't. That's why we are writing a search engine. But now we don't have, then I have to know it is properties, then access property, list properties. Okay, all these are ways to list all the key value pairs. Once you have a list of them, then you can go through, you can enumerate them. So, and JavaScript is a bit complex because you have the enumerable or not issue. you have the symbol key issue, and you have also string key issue, and you have the also inheritance issue, because you don't want to go to the parent object's keys. So there are many ways to do it. So one way is to actually turn this object into a map object. Now, a map object in JavaScript is the actual hash table, the proper hash table data structure. That's called map object in JavaScript, okay? I can show you, for example, JavaScript tutorial, then you go down, you have arrays, you have constructors, class, you have iterable, then you have miscellaneous, then you have map basics. So map object is the data structure, built-in data structure in JavaScript that is basically a hash table. That's a real hash table, key value pairs, which the generic JavaScript object is not. So one way to do what we want is to convert the object into the actual map object. Then it's much easier to work with, because the map object is iterable. Then you can use the for of loop to go through it. It gets very complex. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So anyway, let's not get too fancy, okay? Let's just do the, how do we want to do this? Okay, so anyway, let's go to properties. I have to think. So let's go to list properties, okay? So we have an object, we have a normal object. We want to go through all the keys, okay? And there's also efficiency concerns, because this object is going to eventually have 10,000 entries, more than 10,000 entries. And so you don't want to do too much conversions. You want to use the most efficient way. Actually, I'm getting tired. For constant key in object. Yeah, I can give you a tip right away, because if you use for in loop, that's no good in JavaScript, because when you use for in loop, that will also include keys of the parent object and the parent of that parent object. So JavaScript is a bit complex. For example, I can for in loop. Here's a for in loop, and you should tip, do not use for in loop. In fact, you can ban it. It actually is good to ban it for good, because you'll go through parent objects. So what you okay? So what? So we too much talking. So let's get back to code. Okay. So yeah, let's try to have some tangible form of today's result. Okay. So let's just code quickly. So object keys. Okay. So we're gonna what we're gonna use? Include symbol, no. Include string, yes. Enumerable only, yes. Okay, so we want to go through the hash table. We want to search, go through the hash table. Reflect on keys, enumerable only, no. Okay. Get on property names. No, we want enumerable only. We want enumerable only. And also we got a JSON. Now, is JSON directly also a object? I don't know. I mean, the question is, we got a JSON here. I think it's already an object, but I mean you have to be careful. You have because there are minor details. So JavaScript reference JSON. Okay, JSON is not exactly, it's different from object. I mean, they are not exactly the same. There's a little syntactical. There it is. JavaScript syntax versus JSON syntax. JSON syntax is a more strict than JavaScript syntax. For example, you need the quote, okay, and single quote doesn't work. Okay, and undefined, it doesn't work. Okay, so but basically if you have a JSON, it's already an object. Okay, now once you have an object, so let's see what object entries. Return an array of key value pairs. I'm going in circles. I'm just like that means I'm tired. Okay, let's try object arrays. Okay, let's just try to get something to show. Okay, so object entries. So object entries returns basically convert the object into an array. Returns an array of key value pairs. Okay, of that are object string properties and our own property and are enumerable. That's right. That's what we want. So object entries. Right. So you get array. Okay, so then you want to go through that array. So array, you can use for up loop. Okay, array is iterable. Okay, so for each key of so actually for each element in array. So let's look up for up loop. Okay, list properties and for in loop and for up loop. Okay, so for up loop, a variable, you can go through it, and you can also so this is a form. No, so okay, let's do it just the simple way. Okay, so it's not way for pair in key value pair. Okay, for a pair in key value pair. So for each pair in key value pair, and you want to do search, something like if search found, add it into result array. Okay, so got result pairs array. Okay, so right now it's empty. Okay, so now now let's search. Okay, so for let key pair equals to, so this I can actually okay, key and value pair. So now we need to do search. Now JavaScript in depth reference string, you need to use string methods to search. Array set date, where is it? Boolean string. So there is string, then you want to search string. JavaScript is a very lousy language, I can tell you. Okay, so here is search. there. It's easier to read. Then search string.search returns the index of the first char of matched string. If no match, returns -1. Okay. Now KK is a string. Now dot search. Okay. And the regular expression or string. So the search string is whatever user typed. So where do we get the users? Oh yeah, the filter. Okay, so this is the key, X key. Yeah, so we search for that key. Now we need an if statement. Okay, if this search is greater than 1, greater than 0, returns the index of first char of matched string. Greater than or equals to 0. Okay, that means it's found. So search, if it's found, then push to array. So then you need to push an element to array. Okay, so result pairs array, push. What do you want to push to? You want to push the value, the file path. Okay, value is the file path. So let's prettify the code. Let's hope. Okay, prettify the code. Good. So yeah. Okay. So this filter, it seems to be working. I mean, it seems to be it. Let's go over. Okay, so then after you are done, you need to return it. Remember, so you need to return, prettify the code. Okay, return result pairs array. So yeah, so if it's found, you search for it, then you my wife is back, so I need to go. Maybe we could reformat the hash file, like title URL, and then iterate through the array. Why? Well, anyway, we are getting onto it. We are working. I mean, this is working. Hello, Matthew. Thank you. Spin to win. Fantastic. We are almost done. Maybe 20 more minutes. Anyway, so this filter function seems to work. Okay. I mean, that seems to be the right code. So let's double check. You know, my coding style is usually one shot. I don't trial and error. Usually I know exactly what it is. I code it one time, then it should work. So let's double check. So this f filter function takes 2 arguments. We define it as a arrow function. It takes 2 arguments, a object, a JavaScript object, generic data object, and a key. The key is a string. And what it does is that it will search for all the keys, the enumerable keys in the object. If there's a match, basically return only the elements in the object that the key that contains the search string. Okay, so and it will return, the return thing is a array of pairs. It's not an object, returns an array. So returns a new array, and each element is key and the val of the object where the key contains X key, the search string, okay? Okay, that's the documentation for filter. So then we go through it. We go through the so we go through the we don't need this anymore. You see, like we talked before, in JavaScript, the semantic unit, there is no syntactical correspondence between the semantic unit and syntactical unit. Because, for example, right now I want to delete this part. I cannot just press a key. So I have to actually go here, that, remove that, and put it here. Okay, so anyway, so that seems to be it, okay? I hope, So let's move on to the next one. So the update function will call the filter function. Okay, so what does the update function do? Let's write the documentation. Calls and take its result, then insert the result into the show box. Okay, where is our show box? There. Show box is an element. Let me show you where. Show box is a you see, show is here, this element, HTML element. So fupdate calls filter, takes its result, then insert the result as inner HTML into the show box element. Okay, so that's right. So we're gonna call filter, and the filter takes two arguments. Remember, so the one of them is the object, which is our index file, and the second argument is the word user typed. So how do you get the word the user typed? Well, it's the input text dot value. Okay, so input text dot value. Okay, so here, so x result. Okay, so constant x result equals to that. Okay, so that's the result. And now let's do this so quickly. We're gonna just insert this into the show box. Okay, so yeah, so let's forget about security and anything else. Normally we need to encode it, just make sure it encode it to the proper HTML syntax and so on. But now we just directly insert the result of the filter into the show box element, which should be here. Okay, please let it work. Okay, save it. Okay, it's already saved. Now prettify the code. Okay, now let's go back to the talk show page. Now close that. So you are looking at the talk show page. Now the result should be injected here. Okay, refresh the page. Now we need to find the search word that is in our let's say Stevie. Okay, Stevie egg. Okay, that's one of the title of my page. Okay, so let's search for. Oh, I also need a submit. Oh wait, as soon as you type, it'll show result. Let's see. st, no, something is wrong. Okay, now time to debug. Control Shift I. Let's get the JavaScript console. It's JavaScript console. Uncaught reference error. Result pairs array is not defined. Okay, simple. Result pairs array is not defined. Why is that? Reference error, result pairs array is not defined in line 41. What? Oh yeah, you returned it outside of it. Is that right? What? Oh yeah, we renamed. Remember we added a X in front, so there. Okay. Now refresh. Now let's type. There it is. There is a result. Fantastic. Did you guys see it? STEV. There it is. You know, that's a file path. So that's a result. Now let's close this file. So we start afresh. Fantastic. Now close this file. Show this. Wait. Oh, so many results. Now you see, when the search box is empty, that means the search string exists in every result. So that's why you got the whole thing. Now let's type. Okay, STE. There it is. STE. You know, it narrows down. Okay, let's find something else. Let's see what else articles. Okay, BB code. Okay, here you see BB code. Let's type that. B. There it is. So essentially, we have completed a draft prototype version of a search engine for my website. So now I'm gonna work offline for 2 hours or so. So that I can I'm gonna have a search box for all my emacs, lisp, and emacs tutorial, so you don't have to know where things are. You can search like emacs abbrev. How do you emacs abbrev is one of the best feature of emacs, but where is it? Like, is it in emacs tutorial? So many, there's like 800 pages. You don't know where to find it. So you can just, there's a search box on every corner of the page. You just type abbrev, then it shows you where they are, for emacs, lisp, and also for my JavaScript tutorial. And for my JavaScript tutorial, you can, so I'm gonna have that search box. So we completed a prototype, and it took only 2 hours. Good enough. Thank you guys. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we have a prototype. We can. Yeah, so it works. It works. That's the Unix philosophy. It works. That's it. Okay, but we need to refine. There's a lot to do. I need to refine it. For example, the letter case sensitivity. For example, one of the case is Stevie egg. Like if you type capital STE, you'll find it. But if you use lowercase, it does not find it. So you need to change the case. Then also, what happens if user types 2 words? You need to find both of the words in the title. There's a lot. Also our result right now does not show. Let's see. Let's find something else. Yeah, BB code. Okay, BB code. So the result should be linked. Not that we cannot click. So actually, we need to. Yeah, we need to. There's more code. We need to turn that into a link so people can click it. I can open the file. Okay, so you see it should open this file. I wrote a BB code package long ago. It should open that file. So we need to change the result into a link, and we also need to format it, not just one blob of text. You should like a table, or with lines in between. So a lot to do. It's gonna for real, it's gonna be 3 more hours. So but anyway, so that's it for today. We showed basically how to write a search engine, a very basic elementary search engine. And also we need to, right now, so far we only search the title, which is already very good, especially for programming language reference website for JavaScript or emacs lisp. A search box for a title does a lot already. So but usually you also want to search other headings, regular expression syntax, regular expression flags. You need to search some, and for other pages you also need to search the content. For example, for essays, political essays or whatever, long, for example, I'm talking about programming culture, because people remember you say something, they need to find it, where that page is. So there's a lot to do, but we did the basics. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you like my stuff, buy my JavaScript tutorial. That's the tutorial I'm most proud of, and I would say it's the best one, the world's top 3 in English language. Okay, my JavaScript tutorial, JavaScript in depth, and also my Emacs tutorial is pretty good, because there are not many Emacs tutorials out there. So so if you like my stuff, you can easily find where to pay me, where to buy my stuff. It's all on my website. Just check out my website. Thank you guys. Bye. Finally we did a search engine. Bye.